Welcome to another episode of Selling Southbay. Today, I'm here with a great guy, Don Lee. Thank you,
How are
sir.
you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for allowing me to come here to your business with farmers. And we are here to promote farmers. And Don Lee has been an agent for a long time, and we're going to hear a little bit about him, his story, and why he's been so successful for so long in this business. So please tell us a little bit about you. What are you about? And I know I'm going to bring up something that I witnessed myself last week that I thought was very special, really important.
Don Lee, I've been a farmer's agent for 45 years, mostly in Torrance. Spent a few years as a district manager, but mostly as an agent here in Torrance. We've been specialized in automobile insurance and homeowners insurance and commercial insurance and life insurance. We've got a staff of 3 people and myself, and just kind of enjoy the insurance business.
Well, you must have, because 45 years, boy, nowadays it's kind of weird to hear somebody being on the job for that long with the same company. So you must really love it. What's one of the things that actually keeps you doing and keeps you motivated to continue to do this business?
I enjoy the customers. I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy, explaining a very complicated product that, really affects people's lives when the worst possible things happen.
Yeah,
We're expected to come through and do what we're supposed to do. And a lot of that has to do with what you do before the claim.
right.
And so, it's a job where, kind of probably a little bit like yours, you want to inform your customers of what policies do, what they don't, how they function, how much you have to manage them. It isn't just something you buy once and continue to pay the bill forever. You've got to adjust it as your life changes and how the world changes around you.
Very true. I take my business as I do a lot of educational based consulting, and that is so important. And I think that I believe in insurance, and the reason why, because back in the '90s, actually, I used to be licensed for insurance and for securities. And besides the continuing education, I never got really into the business because my banking career took off. But you know, in my business with licensees, I can tell how long they've been in the business just by looking at the license number.
Yes.
I can imagine your license must be must be very small compared to the numbers nowadays. The size of that number.
Yeah, it starts with a 0, so that means there's been a couple of digits since 1977. So it's old, like me.
Wow, man, you look good. What are you talking about? But tell us a little bit about the Don Lee, the person that I know you for many years, but it wasn't until Friday that I actually got to hear a little bit more about you, who you are as a human being, the leader that you are in this community, and really important how much he actually through the years has given back, uh, especially to this community in Torrance. We want to hear a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, kind of like your business, you want to be involved in the community because you can be.
Right.
The jobs that we have really aren't 9 to 5 jobs, so they allow you to be able to do other things. And being kind of a social animal, I joined various service clubs and other things, and that kind of led to leadership positions in that end of the world, and ended up on commissions in the city of Torrance, ended up on the city council for 8 years, ended up being chairman of the board of the chamber, ended up being on the school board for 13 years, Y board, Rotary, a few other things in between. But yeah, it kept me busy.
Well, on Friday we had the state of the city address for with the new mayor, and the person there that was actually recognized for Distinguished Citizen of the Year, Don Lee. And isn't it beautiful to those nice certificates that the politicians give you?
It's pretty humbling, is what it is.
But I'm sure you have a pile probably this high already, with so many activities that you do.
They're all important.
Yeah, and I got a few, and actually that's something we have in common. I was chairman of the board for the chamber too, and when I started this blog, the first person that I actually interviewed was Donna Duperon,
Okay.
and she was very happy to do it, and she talks about her experiences too with all the different Shermans and the different personalities. So it is the giving back that makes it worth. I was very impressed by you introducing your family and how much support you get from your family, because it keeps us away sometimes when we disinvolve. It keeps us away from the family. So if you have a supporting base, that's what makes it happen.
Yeah, and one is not mutually exclusive of the other. I was always pretty good at dragging the kids along to everything I did for the most part, and it helped them.
Right.
They can be in public and not, didn't know how to deal with adults. Now they're adults, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But we just brought the kids along and did what I had to do, and I didn't miss any football games or basketball games or school conferences because, again, having the kind of job that we
The
have allows
flexibility,
you
yes.
that flexibility to do it. So I could usually fit everything into the jar every day.
Well, that's awesome. Well, going back into the business side, um, what would be a recommendation that you would give to the community in reference to insurance? The advice. Um,
I think it's important to have a relationship with your agent. I know so many times now people buy insurance on the internet or they buy it, over the phone, or they just kind of buy it because they think they have to have it. And then they're surprised when they have a claim when it doesn't do what they think it should do.
right.
And having a relationship with a professional that can sit down and walk you through the policies and explain them to you and tell you what is covered, but more importantly, what isn't covered, because there's always that assumption that something is covered that isn't, or those kinds of things. And it's always, um, it's a big problem when you have a claim. And a lot of the things that aren't covered in a policy are things that you could mitigate prior to the loss. Whether they be maintenance related claims, whether it be just having the right limits on a policy. My What I talk about a lot is when I started in the insurance business 45 years ago, the minimum liability limits for a car insurance policy was $15,000 per person, $30,000 if you hurt more than one person, and $5,000 in property damage if you damage someone else's car. 45 years later, those are still the minimum limits in the state of California. And what was considered a high liability limit in those days was $100,000 per person if you hurt someone else, $300,000 if you were in a big accident, more than one
Right.
person was hurt, and $50,000 in property damage. And people are still driving around with those limits, yet they live in $1 million homes or $2 million homes and have equity. And, it isn't hard to get to a $100,000 loss anymore. And when that happens, the most frightening letter you can ever get from an insurance company is, we expect to pay policy limits, and we will do that, but your interest and our interest may not be mutual after that point because your assets are now going to be at risk.
Right.
And there's a number of things that aren't that expensive that you can do to solve that problem. And while it doesn't happen to everyone every day, it happens to somebody every day.
Yeah, I have actually heard some not very good experiences when people take trying to save a few bucks a year, and at the end they end up losing a lot. And that's why, like I say, when you consult with a client, it's really important to guide them. Somebody out there with not very good coverage on an auto, like you say, gets into an accident, has a lot of equity on their home. You better believe those attorneys are researching and finding everything they can find.
And not
So,
hard to find, not hard to find at
well,
all.
nowadays, I mean, everything is available on a few clicks. So,
Correct. And so, I mean, it isn't, nobody likes paying for insurance. It is probably the worst thing in the world to pay for because you get nothing bright and shiny back.
I totally know what that is.
And so, it's more fun to spend it on cocktails and fun things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about what you're able to keep we all want to, build assets. We all want to do those things, but the other half of it is you got to protect it because there's
Right.
things out there that will take them away.
Yeah. And I mean, who do you recommend to get life insurance to?
Well, I think anybody, but I mean, I think, life insurance is uncomfortable. I mean, it just really is. But you almost have to deal with it like you do with liability insurance.
Right.
And, it isn't going to happen to you statistically until you're in your 80s, but it does happen to people before that quite a bit. And so you've got a responsibility to your family
That's
to
the key. Yeah.
to make sure that they're taken care of if the worst possible thing happens. Now that doesn't, and there's inexpensive options. There's, welcome to California with power. See, there you go. The unexpected happens. So, but when you look at it, it's really a situation where, take the time, have the conversation with your significant other, decide between the two of you what is affordable. You really have to go into a life insurance appointment telling the agent what is affordable to you.
Right.
Because we can be extremely creative and come up with all these things, but if they're not affordable and you're not going to pay the premium, it's a waste of time.
Correct.
Term insurance is perfectly okay as long as you understand how it works. Whole life insurance is great as long as you understand how it works and what it does. And so it is important, to set aside a couple of bucks. Again, you set it for car insurance, set it for house insurance, we'll say it for life insurance. Set aside a couple of bucks. We're all spending $6 or $7 a day on Starbucks.
Easy.
So maybe, buy a can of Folgers and make it at home a couple of days a week and use that money to maybe protect your family.
And especially when in a household there's only one breadwinner, it is crucial.
But even with two,
Well,
in
nowadays,
today's world,
yeah.
it's two.
We need two
And
to buy everything nowadays. Yes.
and so what happens is the life insurance on the wife is just as important as the life insurance on the husband. Even if the wife doesn't work, because if you've got to go to work every day,
Well,
somebody's got to stay home.
I was thinking that the wife was the breadwinner.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe,
just-
maybe. I've never quite figured that one out, but that's good.
Well, again, that's the difference to have somebody that's been in the business in a while, or to have an agent that you actually meet with and get a consultation, than buying something online that we don't read. We don't, they just have you click on, yeah, I read this. So by all means, if you have any needs for, home, auto, life, I mean, Don Lee. So please give this gentleman a call. We're going to go ahead and display his contact information on this video. And Don, I really appreciate you opening your door
Thank
here
you, Aaron.
and allowing us to come in. That's a beautiful sign you have back there, by the way.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
sure it's very well captured by the video. And if any of you out there are interested in your business being promoted, please give us a call, and we're going to be able to come to your establishment and share this in our social media channels. Once again, this is Aaron Alcides with Alpha Real Estate Group at Keller Williams, and we love referrals.
Take care. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, sir.